think in particular with mastering, I feel like better to over communicate than to under communicate, and just like I think a good mastering
100%.
engineer will listen and just say like, okay, cool, let's take a second stab at it. It actually doesn't take that long, right? It's different.
No, not at all. It's like, I mean, compared to mixing, like mastering's so fast. Like it's just so quick. And I think that you've got to respect the fact that someone spent like weeks or months or whatever on a mix.
Yeah.
And then you can't then just get it and go, right, okay, here we go. Get all my stuff out and mess with it loads.
Yeah.
Like I always try and work from the assumption that the mix that I've been sent, like the person who sent it to me is happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the times when I forget that are the times that I get the most revisions.
Yeah, I think it's true also with like label mixing. I just released an episode today with Kevin McCluskey, who does a lot of label mixing for hip hop and stuff like that. And like he used to like try really hard on the mix and do all these unique things and throw all these things, and they're like, okay, but yeah, it doesn't sound like the rough, so just make it more like the rough.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I just need to listen to the rough, because that's what they're going for, and just make it a little bit better, And it's like a very similar. I think they call that kind of mixing finishing.
yeah, for sure.
And that's what mastering engineers do, also finishing, right?
That's exactly it. It is finishing.
Yes,
because it's. Obviously, I'm sure we're not going to go down the whole what is mastering thing, but it's. But yeah, I mean, obviously, all the EQing and all that sort of stuff is a part of it, of course. But yeah, it's everything that it takes to get that record finished. That's the way I see my job.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just a bit of EQing, but sometimes it is a bit more, and it can be completely different depending on what kind of person you're working with, or how experienced they are, or it can end up doing loads of stuff.
Yeah.
Because just like whatever it takes to get that record finished, and to send the artist away like really happy with it.
Yeah. It sounds like it's an interesting job to be a mastering engineer, because you're always working on so many different kinds of projects so quickly that you're just constantly being stimulated by different genres, different approaches, different needs. It must be. Do you find it to be a juggle?
Yeah, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like it's. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. I remember a really good friend of mine once. If we're talking about genres, which, to be honest, it's an interesting topic anyway, talking about genres and things like that. But it doesn't seem to be so tribal these days. But like, I remember my friend was asked once how it was possible that he liked like hip hop and heavy metal or whatever. and he said something like, "Oh man, imagine only liking one kind of music. What a waste of ears." I was just like, yeah, that's it, isn't it? So I don't find it a juggle that's difficult. I mean, it's just really fun.
Yeah.
And because I don't know what's coming.
Right.
And I'm not kind of. I don't cast my net that widely, to be honest. Like I rarely work on jazz. I rarely work on classical. I rarely work on like EDM. So I'm kind of. I tend to operate more in the kind of like pop to noise and that kind of thing. So that doesn't make any sense. Pop to noise.
Pop to noise. That's a good name for another podcast,
So I do like quite heavy, quite extreme stuff through to sort of like indie rock and things like that. And into pop.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's generally my kind of wheelhouse.
I totally get that. Yeah.
So it is a lot of it is a lot of different genres, but they're not so disparate that I'm just like, oh, what the hell,
Yeah. I totally get that. Wait, so this friend, he told you, I really think you should be a mastering engineer. What do you think was his reasoning? Looking back on that, on that conversation,
I mean, some of it was just practical. Because I kind of knew that I needed to not travel. Like I needed somewhere where I could just be, and I didn't want to work in a kind of like I couldn't really be doing long sessions with bands or anything like that. Again, like having been the other side of of the glass, as they say before. Like, I've been in bands where I've gone, right, we'd like our 12-hour sessions to be to 1 till 1, please. And the kind of the engineers are just going, oh, God's sake, really. So I knew I didn't want to be that. So yeah, I need something that I could be completely in control of my own domain, I think, and kind of keep office hours makes it sound so dry, but to just make sure that I could always be there for my family.
Yeah.
Like at the drop of a hat, really.
Yeah.
And just kind of...
I just listened to an interview with Glenn Schick on Working Class Audio.
Oh, he's great.
He's like, yeah, I try to keep banking hours. I was like, okay, awesome. I mean...
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing. I got to reach out to him.
He's brilliant. He said, like, it was a real inspiration for me, actually.
Yeah.
Just because of... I had a very brief chat with him just on Instagram, and we were just talking about the idea of like doing things just because they've always been done a certain way,
right?
And how mad that is.
Yeah,
like like the music industry is so fluid. Like, especially at the moment, like in the last, 10 years or whatever, like things aren't the same as they were 1 year ago, let alone 5 or 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Because the industry's changing, like the way people record, the way people listen to music, the way people consume music, like surely that extends into the technical aspects as well. It has to.
Yeah. Absolutely, it does.
But yet you're still told that, like, well, unless you record in a big studio that costs £1,000 a day, you'll never get anywhere. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you really need the 251 into the 1176. Otherwise, it's over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, man, that's crazy. It's just
yeah.
I'm not saying there's no place for it, because of course there is, but it just doesn't have to be the only one.
Yeah. I mean, I just spoke with Bobby Osinski, who was saying that like he's really excited how plugins are kind of moving away from emulations and into new territory that maybe incorporates some AI and like things just like out of the box that have nothing to do with the way we used to do things, and that's super cool. And like, who needs another 1176? Not to throw 1176 under the bus, but like. Let's come up with new things. It's a new age, and just to tell the audience who maybe don't know anything about Glenn Schick, he's like a very successful mastering engineer. I think he works with Justin Bieber, if I'm not mistaken, and he completely masters with headphones on. With that, he doesn't do anything, and in the box also, completely in the box with headphones, right?
Yeah, I mean, how empowering is that?
Yeah,
to like I mean, if like some like bloke down the street told you, you'd think it was mental, but like you look at his credits and you're like, oh right, so you mastered the new like Noel Gallagher album.
Yeah.
So okay, so this can work then.
It's legit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. His credits are amazing. Like they're just and his stuff sounds great, and he's really kind of I just like how committed he is to it, and how completely sort of like it just ain't no thing to him now. This is just what he does, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah. He just goes bold about it. Yeah. And the proof is really that, or not the proof, but the thing is, it's like you could do it, Pete Lyman style, and you can like have your PMCs and a cutting lathe and do everything that way and do it amazing for, artists like Chris Stapleton. And you could do it like Glenn Schick is doing it with headphones in the box, and they're both clearly working for each of them. And this is something I talk a lot about on the podcast, is just doing what you do best and committing to that. Yeah. And I feel like there's no right way or wrong way to master or to mix or to produce, or you just have to kind of figure out what works for you and what you like to do,
Absolutely. And I think, but funnily enough, even though both those engineers work in polar opposite ways,
right?
They've both got, they're both quite punk in the way they approach things.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Like, Pete Lyman's amazing, like, and he's really kind of like his background in sort of in sort of DIY, for want of a better term, and punk rock and stuff. It's just that completely has come through into his work.
Yeah,
he's working on on completely different types of equipment, and in a much more kind of traditional way. But I think his ethos is still quite
punk.
like, yeah, it's still, it's not stuffy at all. It's really cool. And Glenn's is as well, even though he's not working with, I'm using punk as a very loose term here, not necessarily talking about the type of music, but just in that kind of ethos and that attitude. I mean, Glenn's just like, yeah, fuck you, I'm doing this, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which is just so great.
It is amazing. Hey everyone, it's 2022. If you still don't have a website for your studio, it's time to change that. Every single month, there are potential clients out there Googling your name, trying to find your portfolio, and deciding if you're the right choice for their music. If they can't find your portfolio, you miss out on the gig. The fastest way to get your first website up and running is by using EasyFunnels, the #1 website builder for recording studios. Their templates are all made for the audio industry, so you can just load one of their pre-built designs, upload your portfolio, add your photos, and replace the text on the pages. You could probably have your website done in the time it takes you to listen to one episode of Secret Sonics. If you're finally trying to create your website ASAP, you can get 50% off your first 3 months of EasyFunnels by going to easyfunnels.io/secretsonics, and there's a link in the show notes below, so go check it out. All right, back to the episode. Let's talk a little bit about Weird Jungle. What exactly is a mastering collective?
So the kind of dry answer to that is that it's basically an online mastering house. So instead of being like a Metropolis or an Abbey Road or something like that, where it's a physical building, and within that building there's a handful of working engineers, and then when you want to book your project in, you can choose to work with an engineer, or you can just choose to work in the building with whoever the first available engineer is, that sort of thing. It operates just like that, but it's online, and we're all scattered around the country in our own studios.
Right.
But we're run by a central bookings manager called Carla, who's amazing. And it's Katie Tavini, who I know you've spoken to before. It's her brainchild, and she's just incredible, like a total inspiration every day. And an engineer in Bristol called Izzy McPhee, who's like what's the word? What's the word when someone is being mentored?
An intern.
Kinda.
Or a trainee.
Possibly, yeah, maybe a trainee. Anyway, so Katie's been working with her for a little while, and has sort of brought her into the fold, and that's where we're at the moment. So we've each got different strengths. We've each got slightly different rates. So the idea being that if you want your music mastered, you can come to Weird Jungle, and there's a kind of like a variety of different ways to get your stuff mastered, depending on your budget, depending on your like what kind of music you're doing, or like this choice.
It's like mastering with a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, exactly. But the big thing that we've got is that we can all vouch for each other. We all know that each other will do a really, really good job. And no matter who you come to, you'll get a really good experience with it. It's just trying to take away that, like, it's a bit scary, isn't it? Going to like a mastering.
Oh my God.
Mastering house.
Dude, when I got my record mastered, I was scared for the mastering engineer to listen to my songs and rip me a new one. I'm not even joking. Like, I was so scared. And that was a really interesting experience for me, like in so many ways, because it was my music. I had produced it and mixed it. I wasn't nearly as knowledgeable as I am today. So I made this in 2013, so it was a long time ago. And obviously, I'd like, maybe if I had more time, I'd remix a lot of those songs. But I think the songs hold up. But like, he's like, listen, you didn't really get the bass and kick really well. You don't. I mean, he said it much nicer than that. Like, you don't really know what you're doing yet. Yeah. But he's like, send me like bass, kick, and everything else. And that kind of also decimated my stereo bus, and then he mixed it how I didn't want it, because he made it much punchier, and I wanted it to be warmer, and it was like a whole thing. Anyways, and then I was like, no, dude, we're taking my mixes and we're redoing it. And I bought Bob Katz's book, and I learned,
nice.
and I read it, even though I probably didn't understand very much of it. Oh yeah, it's right behind you. Yeah. the whole thing. Anyways, that was really. I guess it could have gone a lot nicer, but in the end, I guess I still learned my lesson, or not yet. I still have to really interview